Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming back to another episode of Shake Sales. I'm your host, Maggie Blume, the sales evangelist at Mailshake. And today we have Sara Angell on the Shake Sales podcast. So Sara is the director of account development over at UserGems. And today we're going to be talking about her experience from transitioning from an individual contributor role to leadership, which I'm super interested about hearing because I've never been in leadership before, only individual contributor roles. But Sara, thank you so much for being here today. Do you mind taking some time to introduce yourself?
No, thanks, Maggie. Thanks for the nice introduction. And this is actually my very first podcast, so I'm very excited to be here. And I watched a few and excited to be on something that some of the people that I really respect and follow are on too. But yeah, to give a little background on me, I started out in SaaS sales back in 2019, working for a marketing automation company called SharpSpring as an SDR. Very first time doing anything tech, and I worked my way up to a senior SDR role, and then actually left there walking away from a promotion to AE. From there, I moved on to a influencer marketing company called Grin, kind of taking a step back actually from the senior role I got to and starting over as just a low-level SDR again. And it was after that I really realized, my path to leadership. And that's when I found UserGems and joined UserGems actually as the very first ADR there. Got to help build out the team, build out the role. So went from being the first ADR to the team lead, then to manager, and actually just recently promoted to director.
Awesome. Yeah. That's amazing. And an amazing journey too of, switching roles, switching out, even companies and getting to where you are today. And all of that happening pretty, what seems like pretty quickly too. And, and that's kind of where we're going to start this conversation of just, your experience of being the first ADR at UserGems and then getting into the leadership role and where you're at right now of director of account development there. So, what was that journey like? Like, how did it feel as a person who was the first person in that role ever at the company all the way getting to leadership?
Yeah. So really, if, like you said, it probably looks like if you just look at my LinkedIn profile and look at my background and everything, it's like, oh, that was a pretty quick, easy journey. Like, no problem there. But it really did take a ton of patience and determination when I started out as an SDR, I didn't know, like most SDRs, I didn't know which path I was going to end up taking, and went through that whole period of just like, okay, success looks like an AE. That's the only route here. That's the only way to go. Went through that whole stage and I chased that and really pushed for it. And like I said, like I even got to the promotion. It was at that point that I realized this isn't my path, after I'd worked so hard for it. It just wasn't for me. So then, it's not just a journey from like IC to leadership, but it's that whole journey of figuring out like what really fits me, and how do I then get there? And you can't necessarily get there in the company that you're sitting in at the time. That's what I found for myself. And I also found, I left that company for a company that I thought I would grow into leadership within. But then once I was there, I recognized that their whole structure and their whole methodology and values didn't align with the kind of leader I wanted to be. So there's so much that goes into that journey like that you don't expect, not just those stepping stones that you have to go through. So once I got to UserGems, I really knew what I was looking for, at least, to be able to find that place to become a leader. But I still didn't know like what that journey was going to be like to get there. But when I first talked to them, when I first came and interviewed there, I was really upfront and straightforward. And I think that was kind of that first step for me, was just going in saying, this is what I want to do. This is my plan. Does that work for you? This is what I'll commit to on my end. Like, this is what I'll do for you, but this is my path. And they were great for being super transparent back with me and saying, absolutely. And this is exactly what that's going to look like for you. They set those expectations up front and showed me exactly what that transition would look like. And then from there, I just had to, prove my performance, and doing that by really helping to build out the role of the ADR. And then they gave me all the tools along the way that I needed to succeed, which was so important. I got to take courses of what it's like to be a frontline manager, was given, the space and time to really develop the skills that I needed to be able to step into that role.
That's amazing. And your journey, I feel like there's a couple different things I thought of while you were saying it is, first off, the SDR role is so interesting. And a lot of us think like, okay, I'm going to be an SDR, and then I'm going to be an AE, then I'm going to be a team lead, then I'm going to be a manager of one of those teams. And, for a lot of us, it doesn't really work that way. I've been an SDR. I went in recruiting, then I was an AE, then kind of did some SDR work, then account management and all these different things. And it's so amazing that you recognize that, and also had like the confidence to say, okay, this isn't my path, because I think it's really easy for all of us to just think like, okay, well, I got into an SDR position, so I know the next step is an AE, but the SDR role and the AE position are completely different. And that's something we really want to do. And the funny thing for me is that I really liked being an AE. That's, one thing that I did like, and I loved it 100% more than being an SDR, but I didn't know that at the time. I kind of just fell into it like most SDRs do. But I think like, I just want to applaud you for having like the guts to say like, this isn't really what I want, even though this is a promotion. I actually don't feel called to do this role.
And I think it's funny. I think it can come to you in several ways, right? Like I also, I tried to get that promotion long before I got it. And I got a terrible interview where I was basically told SDRs don't make good AEs, and just crushed with disappointment, like, which was, still blows my mind. But but that just made me more determined, which it's funny that then I also went through like account management. I was like, well, maybe, if I can't be an AE, maybe there's a path there. But then in learning more, taking the time and really spending time with people in those roles, shadowing, trying to figure things out. Someone actually gave me great advice at one point and just told me like, hey, you need to look at what you're doing right now that you really, really love, the parts that make you excited every day, and look at what you've done in the past that you miss doing, and find the role that fits into those things. And once I did that, the picture was just really clear for me. It's like, okay, I love working with my teammates. I love helping new people as they onboard. I love building out new processes. Those are the things that get me excited. So leadership in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you had also the courage to explain that in your expectations when you were looking for a new role. And like you said, sometimes looking for a new role when we're working and living in a startup world, that is sometimes leaving. That's sometimes getting to a new company, not because that previous startup or anything like that is a bad company to work for, but there might just not be the room for growth that you have there, which is totally fine. That's why people don't stay in roles that long. And it's not like a downside. It's just figuring out what you want and going out there and getting it and going to the company that's going to give it to you too, that aligns with everything. So awesome. I love that journey that you've had there. So let's say I am an individual contributor, which I am. There are some people on the podcast that also listen who are individual contributors, who someday want to make that transition into leadership. So right now, what are 3 tips, I guess, you'd suggest for them to make that happen?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first thing, and this would be my advice, no matter what you're looking at doing, but whatever you're drawn to, being pulled to, I'd say start doing the job before you have the job. So in the ways that you can, in the seat that you're in. So for going into leadership, I'd say make yourself the go-to person on your team. Make yourself that person that everyone, if there's a question, they're like, oh, she's got it, volunteer to help, to make yourself the go-to person to your manager, to your current leadership, like volunteer to help all the time, whatever it is, volunteer for it, whether it's projects, whether it's helping with people onboarding, however you can help your manager. So that'd be tip number one. And then just spend time with other leaders. And I don't mean just what you want to be. If your goals, like mine was SDR manager, don't just put yourself in that box, but also spend time with RevOps leadership, spend time with sales managers, spend time with marketing leadership, spend time with the people that you are going to be around and learning from them as well. This will set you up for the future. For when you do move into that seat, it'll be a lot easier. You'll have those relationships built. Also, there's a wealth of knowledge. With that too, like lean into your network, LinkedIn, wherever your network is, lean into them, ask for introductions, ask for mentors. People want to help. So let them, and go in like as much blank slate as you can be. Just soak as much up from every direction you can. Yeah. And then I'd say also speaking up at meetings. It's maybe like an obvious thing, and it may be something that a lot of people already do. For me, I am not a public speaker, not comfortable being up in front of people and talking. And so I knew that this was something I had to find a way to get comfortable with. So I learned to start making myself speak up at every meeting. Okay. I mean, be annoying, be that person that they're like, everyone knows is going to say something, because it will just make you so much more comfortable. And also you start to find your voice as a leader and start to find your own kind of authority. So make that transition all the easier.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you on that one too. I can do a good job speaking with clients, leads, but for some reason, when I'm in meetings with multiple people, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm just going to stay silent because I can. So it seems obvious, but it is something like for a person like me, it's something I actively have to think about and contribute to and talk about. And I also love that you said, take a look at leadership, horizontally. Because when you do step into leadership one day, those are going to be the people you're working closely with and you have to collaborate with as well. And I think that's something we kind of get lost of when we're so narrowed in on like, okay, I'm going to be the director of SDRs or, whatever. We're like, okay, we'll just talk to that person because they'll know the best. But yeah, making sure that there's like a full picture, because that's a lot of what leadership is, collaborating with other people too. So awesome. Cool. Well, I guess the last question I really have for you around this, we talked about how you got into your journey there, tips for other people out there listening. What's the most shocking thing to you right now being in leadership that you really didn't imagine when you were an individual contributor?
Yeah. So there's a few things. The way your brain starts to work is a bit different. Like, for instance, I was on my ride taking my kid. Well, I wasn't driving. My husband was driving, but taking our kids to school this morning, I was just doing calculations on my calculator to figure out like exactly where we're at pacing wise. So it's just a different mentality. The responsibility of a team it's heavy, like that responsibility and that I see like mentality and that drive to be successful, I feel like didn't leave when I moved into management, but it transformed to almost multiply by, by
Yeah.
the number of people in my team. So now I'm not just worried about like my success is their success. So that drive to get there is that much heavier. But probably the most shocking thing in the whole transition was just how hard it was to be a team lead. That position, that dual, like you're still on the team, you're still an individual contributor, but you're also now coaching your teammates that were just your teammates in the same seat as you, and now weren't. Like, it's a weird place to be, and it can be a little funky to navigate. And suddenly you're holding your teammates accountable for their metrics and things like that, but you still have these goals to hit yourself, and balancing, how much time do I spend helping them and how much time do I still have to prove myself if I want to get to that stage. So I knew it was going to be hard, but it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So if you know a team lead, go and give them a hug.
Give them a Valentine's Day card today.
Yeah, give them a Valentine's Day card. They're doing their best.
No, and you brought up the first thing that you mentioned, like you said, you're like in the car today, not driving, but you were doing calculations. Do you feel like, and that your mind kind of shifts when you're in a, leadership role versus an individual contributor role? And I've heard that from other leaders as well. But, do you feel like a lot of your job too is like you're getting in the weeds with data as well, like kind of looking at what's in the past and then going forward too? Do you feel like that's a big part of it?
Yeah, it is. And I always like data and metrics as an IC. So maybe it hasn't been so rough for me, but there are a lot of things that I just simply didn't know, like building comp plans and stuff like that. I was like, no, people do that for you, so things like that. There's a lot of technical things to learn that I didn't walk into it with, and so kind of learning as you're going. But yeah, my dashboard is my best friend now. It's like it's obsessive level that things refresh far too many times a day. But yeah, looking at that historic data and then trying to break out the glass ball and predict the future definitely is a big part of it.
Yeah, and predicting the future is really fun right now in the market that we're in. But no, leadership at Places is doing its best. Sorry, you were about to say something.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. I was like, yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah, that could be a whole other podcast of things here. But no, Sara, I really appreciate you giving some people out there some tips today, especially individual contributors, talking about your, the start of your career working in SaaS as an SDR and where that's brought you here. Because I just want to tell other SDRs out there, it's not a linear path, and there's so many things that you can do with that role. I'm sure Sara agrees, but any last advice for someone out there looking to make the same journey that you made?
Yeah, I'd say if you are looking to go into that, definitely start with looking where you are and looking at your current leadership. Consider what it'd be like working alongside them. Could you work well together? Look at the team. Could you manage this team? Start to look at it more from as if you were there than reaching for it. I think will give you a better grasp of if this is what you really want. And then, even breaking things down to like, what are the expectations of the ICs? Has that felt good to me? Is that something as a leader I'm going to want to support? Or if I'm trying to move into a leadership position where I'm going to have to go in and disagree and try to change some things. So it's just a lot of things to think about when moving into this, because it is, it's a lot of work to get there. So just make sure that it's what you want before you start down the road is what I'd say.
Yeah, having a lot of reflection there of, if it's something that you do want to go after and spending the time to do that there too. But awesome. Well, Sara, thank you so much for talking with us today on Shake Sales about your journey. Last thing I just want to ask you is, where can people find you after this podcast?
LinkedIn, hit me up anytime. Very, very happy to talk to anyone or answer any questions that you might have. Open for mentorships too. So
amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah, for being on here. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Shake Sales. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thank you, Maggie.